Can you allow life to be many things simultaneously? Is your binary perspective of what life should look like somehow inhibiting your experience? One thing that I've come to learn about life, and its many different layers and strands and threads of complexity, is that they can come hand in hand with different moments. So maybe you're someone who has loved and lost someone, and you find that in your moments of grief, you could encounter something that made you laugh or made you smile. And then you find yourself beating yourself up for finding that moment of joy in your pain and then experiencing the guilt that comes with it. I've been there. I wonder if you have too. We end up sort of punishing ourselves for finding the joy in moments when we should be grieving. But what if both things can coexist? Life can be hard and beautiful. Life can be painful and full of joyful moments. Life can be really difficult, but equally inspiring. Life can be many things at the same time. And I think when we allow ourselves to soften into that and allow ourselves to experience life as a multifaceted event, then it takes a little bit of pressure off things having to be perfect. You can be going through something really difficult. Like this year has thrown so many challenges in my direction that I've been totally blindsided, to be quite frank with you. But by the same token, I've had an amazing year because I've achieved some really incredible stuff, and I've stretched my capacity, and I've completed writing my book, which is a huge thing for me. And yeah, but at the same time, it's been hard. It has taken me to some of the depths of the human experience in terms of sorrow, pain, all of those sorts of things. But can we allow the two things to coexist? So yesterday I went to Downing Street, and for those of you who don't know where Downing Street is, if you're outside of the UK, it's the home of our Prime Minister. And as somebody with a spinal cord injury, I'm a fierce advocate for representation when it comes down to spinal cord injury, and not just spinal cord injury. I'm a fierce advocate for quite a lot of things, but this particular case, I'm talking about spinal cord injury. So I'm an ambassador for the Spinal Injuries Association. And yesterday we got to go to Downing Street to hand in a petition and a series of recommendations for spinal cord injury care so that we can help to improve the life experience for injured people. And it was a beautiful moment and an incredibly proud moment, especially when I think about my family lineage and my ancestors, and the fact that I'm probably the first person in the lineage of my family that would be at Downing Street, which was quite a big thing. But also simultaneously running in the background, again as a result of my spinal cord injury, is a lot of pain, a lot of physical pain and fatigue. So I'm having like one of the best days ever whilst also managing that pain. And another thing is I'm really mindful of just presenting a really balanced perspective of life, because much of the stuff that we see online is so often these highlight reels. But a lot of the time people are projecting these highlights while simultaneously having painful and difficult experiences. But it's not those things that we often want to share. And I know for me, one of my rules is to share from my scar rather than from my wound, because I think if we come to social media in our vulnerability, I don't know, you just need to be mindful about what you're opening yourself up to, because it is effectively a portal, isn't it, to many, many different energies. So if you're particularly vulnerable, or if you're going through something particularly challenging or difficult, sometimes it's best not to project those outwards. Look, everyone has to do their thing in their own way, but for me, I like to have chance to process what I'm going through, understand what it is that I've been through, find the lessons and grow through it, and then I can come back and share it with you. So sometimes when you're going through the depths of your pain, it's not always best to come out and be like, oh, you know, life is really hard. But life is hard. But it's how we can make the most of it in spite of that. So one of the things that I've learned through my life experience is that if I was to dwell in the sadness of all of the bad stuff that had happened, life would feel pretty miserable. Life would feel pretty bleak, which is why I've made it my business to go about changing and the things that I can control. So much of life, so much of the things that have happened in my life have been outside of my control. The death of my boyfriend, there was nothing I could do about that. The long period of infertility that I experienced was outside of my control. The hemorrhage that I experienced in childbirth and the sepsis as well that led me to have an emergency C-section, I can't control that. When I had my spinal cord injury, there's nothing I can do about that. But what I can do is adjust how I face the day and how, despite and in spite of the challenges that I'm coming up against, can still find these little threads of inspiration and excitement. Because when we find these things in life, these golden threads of light that can bring us back to our sense of feeling alive, it gives us a real sense of purpose. It gives us something to wake up to and something to focus on and something to work towards. Because if I'm waking up every day to a body that is in permanent pain, with bowels that don't work and bladder dysfunction and mobility issues, and if I just focus on that every day, can you imagine how I would feel and where my mindset would be at? But instead, if I'm like, how can I wake up and share something today that might help to uplift or inspire someone else? How can I take some action today that connects me to my creative centre, that helps me to remember what it is to feel alive? When you can find those little threads of enjoyment within your pain, that's when life can really keep moving. And don't get me wrong, sometimes, we do need those moments where we surrender and we shut off. And sometimes you don't need to, but sometimes you feel like you just can't want to kind of ruminate a little bit in those feelings, or just sit in your grief and your sadness and allow that to really wash over you. Because all these different things are a teacher. I think in my experience, though, is knowing when to pull yourself back up and out of it. Because when my boyfriend died, well, first of all, I didn't have the tools and the skills that I have now to help me bounce back. But when my boyfriend died, I was in such deep grief and depression and anxiety disorder that spanned on for well over a decade that it was hard to find the enjoyment. I went through the motions. I used to go out raving and I was doing stuff that on the outside looked like it was joy, but in the inside there was still very much this black hole of grief that permeated through everything. So the difference now is that it's like I don't think I'll ever stop grieving the body I had, and it does make me feel sad when I think about it, but it's so far outside of my control now. So how can I use this injury as a catalyst for something greater? How can I use this injury as a teacher? How can I use this injury to help me to help other people, rather than just sitting in the pain of the injury? It was like with the loss of my boyfriend. Once I finally gained enough self-awareness to realise that I was not helping myself because I was sitting permanently in the depths of that grief and in that pain, and it was all consuming at the time. It swallowed me up. I felt like I was just in a vacuum of darkness, like an infinite pit of blackness that just, had me drowning, really. But once I was able to start doing that healing work, start doing the reflection, start questioning myself and start moving out of that and start thinking, well, what has this experience taught me? Not that I would ever have wished his death to have taught me anything, not that I would ever have wished that to happen, but being as this is where we find ourselves, how can we find the light within that? And I think sometimes looking for the light can be a task. It can be a hard job when you feel like all you can see is the darkness that surrounds you. But somewhere inside is a little flicker of light, and it's about how we can seek and find those threads and hold on to those threads and weave them into something beautiful. How can we take those little threads of light and like I said, weave something really beautiful? So in my life, I kind of see myself as a bit of an alchemist of pain. Life throws stuff at you. What are you going to do with it? Can you allow yourself to have simultaneously challenging and beautiful moments? Can you still strive to be better, to do better, whilst also acknowledging that what you've been through is pretty hard. And sometimes we need to be reminded about what is good in our life. Like I said, it's easy to be consumed by the darkness. So you might want to find yourself a piece of paper and a pen, or use your notes app on your phone, or whatever you are, whether you're an artist, you might want to doodle, whatever works well for you. And just create a bit of a list of all the things that are good in life. And then even with the challenges that you've been through, you can have a think about, what have you learned through those challenges? How have you grown through those challenges? What have those challenges shown you about yourself? And it can just be a reminder that even in the hard times, stuff can shine through. And another thing that you can do if you want to just connect a little bit deeper is just to sit down, allow yourself to relax, close your eyes if it feels comfortable for you to do so. Take a breath and just put your hand over your heart and breathe into that. And just think about some of the hardest things that you've been through and the ways that you've grown and you've evolved. And just see if there's anything within those painful moments as you connect within that you would, just ask it in that pain. What is a thread of light that has come from this painful moment? What thread of light wants to be seen amongst this darkness? And just intuitively connect within and see what comes up. You might be surprised. So I'll leave it there for this week. Short and sweet. But hopefully it'll just help you to think a little bit about some of the ways you can find light in your darkest of days. Big love, peace out, come connect with me in the Heart Healing and Soul Growth community. It's free to join. Link will be in the description. Have a beautiful week ahead.